Last year, August, there was an interview done on the Breakfast Club of one Larry Elder. Now, that particular interview went absolutely viral, but not for the reasons it should have. You see, the reasons it should have gone viral was because of how well Larry Elder, one, handled himself and the information, two, that he came with. No, it went viral because of a certain individual by the name of, when you hear this name now, Tezlyn Figaro. Now, if you don't know who Tezlyn Figaro is, consider yourself blessed. You are in the few percent of people that have had their brains not fully rotted. Okay? Because when you hear this individual try to make arguments against Larry Elder's point of view, you will quickly become aware of one very important thing. Miss Figaro does not implement very good critical thinking skills. One, we think is because she doesn't possess, but even if she did, she does not know how to execute it. At one point in the interview, Mr. Elder was going on about numbers, systemically numbers. I'm not talking about the systematic racist stuff, but he's going through systematically the numbers of what it is that's happening to the black community versus what's happening to the white community. And he's trying to tell them that the reason for a lot of this stems from fathers not being present in the home, the number one reason. He goes on to talk about a few other things, including Black Wall Street. Now, in the interim, Miss Figaro decides to ask a question. But if you listen to her tone, and you can go listen to this, when you listen to her tone, there is not really a question being asked, but more of a condescending tone towards Larry. And this is where sparks start to fly on her end.
And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair, it's wrong, and you're discouraging black people from working hard. 1996.
Okay. Mr. Elder, a quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system.
Mr. Larry handled it amazingly. He was very calm, very collected. He did better than I would ever have done in that situation. So she said to him, you know what? Let's just take racism off the table for a minute, since it seems to trigger you. Please remember and bookmark that statement. The very next question out of her mouth is, who was the party in charge, or rather, who was in charge of the system, of creating a certain system? Who was it?
So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Now, you would think she's trying to ask a question about which party, or perhaps what my thinking was. No. Now, remember, I said to keep in mind that she said, let's not talk about racism for a minute, then proceeds to dog Mr. Elder for not realizing that white people were in charge of the system. Well, Ms. Figaro, if you told us to park race, why would I then pick it up to discuss it? You told us not to. So Mr. Elder didn't pick it up. He said to you, we vote for a certain way of behavior and we can't get mad.
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time. The system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or black.
You went to, well, who was in charge? Whites or blacks? I can't tell you that. You told me to park racism. But it seems like you're trying to include race in something you told me to exclude it from. Again, as I said before, critical thinking isn't her strong suit. But emotionality now, she got that down pat. It gets exponentially worse. Now, asking Mr. Larry Elder a couple of questions in succession. Why is it? Every time he tries to chime in with the question answer, she comes with another one. I'm just saying, and then when the question again, but I'm just saying, and every time cuts him off. So Mr. Larry Elder did what any good man would do, not address the woman. Yeah, y'all gonna get mad for that one. This is what he did. You know what, Charlamagne, can I answer this question? Because apparently this other one doesn't want me to answer. That's not what he said, but that's what he said.
I said it wasn't.
There was no racism.
I said it wasn't systemic racism. Let's talk about.
So what? Are you just hung up on the word system?
Can I just make this point, Charlamagne, please?
And I applaud him for that. Why? Because you cannot reason with emotionality. But it sells. It sells. And it sells so well that she believes that she can persuade people by just using that. Here's the biggest problem. When you encounter someone that only deals with what they tangibly can deal with, numbers, factual stuff, you lose because emotions don't play into that. Nor does the facts play into your emotions. You are going to convince me based on what you feel, but you can't show me why you feel how you feel. Then I can't join you there. And this is where we lose people. With Miss Figaro and this particular interview, the thing that made it go viral wasn't the questioning, wasn't the interaction between Larry Elder and Charlemagne. It was the interaction that Miss Figaro decided to put on Mr. Elder as though she was the one that had all the intelligence in the world and Mr. Elder was just a dummy. Now, mind you, one's a lawyer, one just talks a lot. One had come out of absolute abject poverty, the other one did not. One uses filters and wigs, the other one does not. One uses logic, the other one does not. But you expect me to listen to you having all of the negative and not listen to Mr. Elder having all of the positive. Hear me and hear me well. If an individual is asking you to do what is best for your life to make it a good life, and then there is someone else telling you you will never attain a good life because of someone else, which one are you going to believe? And I can understand that you might pick the negative one because of your viewpoint of life. But if someone that's telling you that you can do it has been where you are and made it out, why would you not listen to them, especially when they're telling you how to make it out? Note to self, Charlemagne and DJ Envy aren't telling you how to make it out. Instead, they're scamming you. Just remember this. They're the same two that have a housing issue and the rent. Remember that? That's them. They're participating in systems that will keep you down while making it on your back and then telling you you can't make it out. The second part of this thing that comes up is the idea of system. Mr. Elder talked about his running for governor in California. When he was running for governor in California, there was a whole lot of red tape that he was forced to jump through. Now, hear me out. Red tape he should not have had to jump through, but he did have to regardless. So he was making a statement saying that particular governmental system of how elections are run should be looked at. And that the voice of the people should be allowed to do what is needed to get the person they want in power. And it shouldn't be about money. Now, when he's talking about that, you can actually tangibly look and see that, yes, money playing a part in it. You can look and see it. Dark money plays a part. She chimes in and says, I thought there wasn't a system. Which is it, Mr. Elder? Is there a system or there's not a system? Well, let me help you out, Miss Figaro. Yes, there is a system, but it's not based on color. And that was Mr. Elder's point. You would understand that if you could park your emotions for more than 5 seconds. Cash and influence are what peddles it. Cash and influence, which is why the political system needs to be revamped to get off of influence and cash. That was his point. He even told you, you cannot name me one law, and there are laws that make money the point of politics, but you can't name one law that puts race, hear me out, race as the catch point for people being prosecuted. You can't. There is nothing on the books that says it. Now, you can tell me an individual can be racist and hate the person and try to pursue them because of it, but they still have to bring a charge that has nothing to do with race. You might have stereotypes, but don't lie to yourself, because unfortunately for people just like Figaro, she enhances that stereotype by the way she lives and talks. If anyone is perpetrating anything, it'll be her. But the system is not a race-based system. It's influence and cash. And then she will say, oh, we know majority of blacks are poor. And herein lies the biggest catch-22. And Charlemagne is privy to this, and so is DJ Envy, because they know exactly what they're doing. Here's how it works. I know what you're fully capable of doing, but I also know that what you can do will take away my power over you. So what do? I emphasize the fact that there is something out there, unbeknownst to you, intangible, it's just out there. You can't even stop it, that will stop you from doing what you want to do. And I keep making sure I stay this point in your mind. And the only way for you to really kind of break free is to listen to me, and I will help you do so. And in fact, I will keep harping upon you the idea that you can't make it out. And when somebody comes to tell you otherwise, they must have adopted a system that is the one that's oppressing you. So you call them a certain name. Enter Miss Figaro. See, they want you to believe that you doing what you can do for yourself and putting your future first, that's a problem, and nobody wants you to do it. But when we tell you and show you tangible proof of someone doing it, you're an exception. Well, be an exception. Try and be an exception. Why do you want to be the rule? Especially when the rule is so trash. I am not sure that we have really let go. And please, I don't want anybody getting too mad at me. Hear me out. And I'm not agreeing with it. Just bear with me. We have moved on from the plantation model in actuality. What we have not moved on is the other half of the equation, and that's the house. We've not moved on from the house. The house is very much prevalent. The field has turned into an everybody zone. The house, however, still remains reserved for elite, racists, and the ones that push the racist idea. What did the racist tell you? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. And you cannot make it without me. Who else says that? Not people like Larry Elder. No. People like Figaro tells you that. You can't make it. There's something over you that will always keep you down. Know where you are. Work within those limitations. Meanwhile, here's Larry Elder behaving more like Django. Take off from the plantation and end everything right there. But he's the bad guy. Well, I'll end with this. When you don't have an argument that makes sense, you have to feast on emotions. Because whether we like to admit it or not, people do a lot of crazy things when they're emotionally distraught. And if you can get an entire population there, you can control them. That was her goal, and I'm sure she managed to accomplish that with a few. The benefit of who she was debating is that she was debating a man who did not give in to her emotionality and can actually debate her on the premise of truth. She hated that. And by the end of this interview, she was so hot under the collar that she didn't even want to say nothing no more. But that's what the truth will do to a lie. It'll frustrate it. I hope she gets more frustrated. Maybe one day she'll wake up. Let me not ask for the super impossible here today. But if you're one of those people that think like she does, I'm just going to simply ask you to give me a reason as to why you believe what you believe. Tangible, please, if you don't mind. I don't want anecdotal about you. I need tangible. I need to know why you think the way you think and why you have to blanket everyone that they should think like you. However, we're not saying you have to think the opposite either. We know right from wrong, but you don't have to do right. I can encourage you all day long. That don't mean you're going to do it. It also doesn't mean that you would even want to do it. But it's able. All we're asking is that you just park the emotions just for a bit, long enough to listen to the other side. And if after you've listened, actually actively listened, you still disagree, then please continue to live the way you're living. Let me know, though, how in 30 years you've turned out. Because I have a bet on the table that you'll be no better off than you are now, and you'll be twice as miserable. And one day you're going to wake up looking exactly like Tezlyn Figaro.